Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something today that a lot of people don't understand. When you go no contact with someone who's avoiding, oh, they got a whole game plan running in their head. Now, they might not show it. They might walk around like nothing's wrong, like they cool with it. But deep down, they got hope. Ladies and gentlemen, let me break something down for you today that most folks miss. See, when you dealing with an avoidant person and you decide to go no contact, there's a whole storm going on inside them, even if they standing there looking cool as ice. On the surface, they might shrug their shoulders, act like they didn't even notice you gone. They might even tell themselves, good, I needed space anyway. But deep down, they scared. Yeah, scared. They fear abandonment more than anything. They just too proud or too wounded to ever let you see it. Now, they learned early on that showing fear, showing need, showing vulnerability, that stuff only leads to pain. Somewhere back in their story, they picked up the belief that if they depend on someone, if they get too close, they're just setting themselves up to get hurt. So they built walls, high walls, thick walls. And when you go no contact, those walls don't protect them like they thought they would. No, those walls become a prison, but they're too stubborn, too afraid to admit they're locked inside. So they walk around acting indifferent. They smile at people, go to work, hit the gym, post on social media like life is grand. But let me tell you, that indifference, that's not real peace. That's not real strength. That's somebody trying to convince themselves that they didn't care when deep down they care so much it scares them. Every time they check their phone and don't see a message from you, every time they wake up and you still gone, that fear grows a little bigger inside them. But they push it down because facing it would mean admitting they're vulnerable. And avoidance, vulnerability feels like danger to them. Now, here's the wild part. They fear abandonment, but they also fear closeness. It's a no-win game playing in their mind. They push you away to protect themselves. But the moment you actually leave, the moment you go silent, they start feeling that panic rise up. That's when the fear of abandonment grabs hold. But instead of reaching out, instead of saying, hey, I miss you, they double down on acting like they don't care. It's safer that way. Safer to pretend they're unbothered than to risk rejection. But behind that mask of indifference is someone who's checking to see if you'll break the silence first. Someone who secretly hopes that you'll prove them wrong, that you won't leave like they always feared you would. Every day you stay no contact, they're stuck in that push and pull. Part of them wants to reach out to stop you from slipping away. But the other part is screaming, no, don't do it. If you open up, you'll get hurt again. So they freeze, they wait, they hope, all while pretending they couldn't care less. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the hidden truth about avoidance when you go no contact. They ain't sitting there calm and collected like they want the world to believe. No, they're wrestling with their deepest fear. The fear of being left behind, forgotten, abandoned, but they hide it under layers of cool detachment and fake confidence. So when you see them out there acting like they moved on without a scratch, remember, it's an act. Because inside they're hoping, praying in their own quiet way that you'll come back, that you'll prove their fear wrong, that maybe, just maybe, they can have connection without pain this time. But they'll never say it. They'll just keep wearing their mask, hoping you'll see through it without them ever having to take it off. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about folks with that avoidant mindset. See, when you go no contact, it triggers something deep inside them, something that makes them breathe just a little easier at first. Why? Because avoidance craves space. They hope for it, they pray for it, even when they don't say it out loud. That space is their safe zone. It's where they feel like they're back in control. You see, when relationships start getting too close, too intense, too emotional, avoidants feel like they're losing their grip. They start feeling trapped, like they're about to drown in somebody else's feelings. And for them, control is everything. So when you pull back, when you go silent, that silence feels like oxygen to them at first. It gives them room to build their walls back up, to remind themselves that they're still the ones calling the shots in their own emotional world. But let's go deeper with this. That space they hope for, it's not about freedom in the way most people think. It's not about wanting to go out and have a good time, living carefree and wild. No, for avoidance, space is about survival. It's about calming down that voice in their head that says, you're getting too close, and closeness equals pain. So when you go no contact, they feel a momentary relief. They think, finally, I can breathe again. They hope that this distance will reset the playing field, that they'll come back to center and feel strong again. But it's not real strength they're after. It's control. Control over their emotions, control over the relationship, control over how much they have to feel and how much they can avoid. Now here's the twist, ladies and gentlemen. Even though they hope for space, that very space starts doing something they didn't plan on. At first, they feel like they're back in charge, like they've escaped the pressure of intimacy. But day by day, that space starts to stretch. And while they're sitting there, trying to convince themselves they're fine, a little voice creeps in whispering, what if they don't come back? What if this space becomes permanent? But they won't admit that voice is there. They'll cling to the idea that space is fixing everything, that if they just stay in control, they won't have to feel that fear again. They hope that when you finally do come back, you'll come back softer, less demanding, less emotional. They hope you'll return on terms that don't challenge their comfort zone, because that space, that control, that's their armor. They think that if they can just keep that distance, they can have the relationship without the risk. They hope for a version of love that doesn't require them to be vulnerable. And that's why they secretly celebrate when you go no contact, at least in the beginning. It fits perfectly into their pattern. Pull away, gain control, feel safe again. But here's the thing. The longer the silence goes on, the more that hope starts to shake. Because deep down, they know that control is an illusion. They can't really control your heart. They can't really dictate whether you come back or not. And that realization starts to chip away at their cool exterior. But still, they hold on. They double down on the hope that space is the answer. That if they just stay detached long enough, everything will fall back into place without them ever having to face their fears head on. So when you go no contact, avoidants hope for space because they believe that space will put them back in the driver's seat. They hope that distance will make the messiness of emotions disappear, that it will restore balance in a way that keeps them from feeling too exposed. And while they sit in that space, clinging to control like a life raft, they silently hope that when you return, you'll let them stay wrapped up in that safety without asking them to step out of it. That's the battle they fight every single day, even if they never show it on their face. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something real today. See, when you go no contact with an avoidant person, you're not just giving them space. You're feeding a belief they've been carrying for years, maybe their whole life. That belief says emotional distance is the only way to stay safe. And when you disappear, when you stop calling, stop texting, stop showing up, that belief kicks in stronger than ever. In their mind, they tell themselves, see, this is what works. When I keep people at arm's length, when I avoid feelings, when I stay distant, I stay safe. And they cling to that like it's gospel truth. It makes them feel like they're winning, like they've dodged a bullet by keeping their heart locked up tight. Because to them, getting too close has always meant danger. Maybe they learned it from growing up in a home where love came with conditions, or maybe they got burned one too many times. Either way, they made up their mind that feelings equal pain and distance equals peace. So when you go silent, when you go no contact, it doesn't just feel like relief. It feels like confirmation. It tells them they were right all along to avoid emotional intimacy. It proves in their eyes that pulling back was the smart move. That if they let things get too deep, too vulnerable, they'd be the one hurting right now. But since they stayed distant, they think they've protected themselves. They believe they're safe because they didn't let you get too close. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, that safety they're feeling, it's a false kind of peace. It's not real calm. It's just the absence of immediate emotional risk. Deep down, there's a storm brewing, but they refuse to look at it. Instead, they focus on how the distance makes them feel in control. They tell themselves that this is the way it has to be, that keeping people out is the only way to avoid the pain that comes when people get in. And so when you go no contact, it feeds that pattern. It makes them dig their heels in deeper. It makes them believe even more that closeness is a threat and distance is the cure. Now, they might not say this out loud. In fact, most avoidants won't even admit it to themselves. They'll say they're fine. They'll act like they don't notice you're gone. They'll pretend they're too busy living their life to care. But make no mistake, they feel the distance. And instead of seeing it as a loss, they twist it in their mind to feel like it's protection, like they dodged another emotional bullet. They build a wall a little higher, make the armor a little thicker, all because your silence confirmed what they already believed, that feelings are dangerous, and the only way to be safe is to stay emotionally detached. But let's be clear. This belief doesn't bring them joy. It doesn't bring them deep fulfillment. It just brings them a temporary sense of safety, the kind of safety that comes from not having to face their fears. It's a lonely kind of victory, but to an avoidant, loneliness feels safer than vulnerability. And every time someone goes no contact with them, every time they survive that emotional distance, it reinforces their commitment to staying guarded. It tells them, see, this works. stay distant. So when you go no contact, you're not just creating space, you're lighting up that old belief inside them. Like a neon sign, it tells them that emotional distance is the answer, that pulling back is better than leaning in, that walls are better than bridges. And the longer that silence lasts, the more that belief gets rooted deeper in their heart. They feel like they've won by staying protected, but what they've really done is build a fortress that keeps everyone out, even the people who care. That's the hidden cost they pay every single time they choose distance over connection. And they don't even see it happening because in their mind, distance still equals safety. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a little secret about avoiding people when you go no contact. See, they might act like they're relieved you're gone. They might strut around like they're free now, like they've escaped the pressure and the drama. But deep down inside, where they don't let nobody go, they're hoping you'll come back. Oh, yes, they want you back. But here's the catch. They want you back on their terms. They want the power. They want the control. They want to feel like they called the shots, not you. Because for an avoidant, love has always been a power struggle between staying safe and letting someone in. And when you go no contact, it scares them and soothes them at the same time. They hope you come back not because they're ready to open up or change, but because your return would mean they didn't really lose you. It would mean they still have the upper hand. It would confirm their belief that they can keep their walls up and you'll still come knocking. See, they're sitting there secretly waiting for that message, that call, that sign from you. They're hoping you'll be the one to break first so they don't have to. Because reaching out, that feels like surrender to them. That feels like vulnerability. And vulnerability feels like danger. So they sit and wait, acting cool, but their mind is racing with little fantasies about how you'll show back up, how you'll apologize, how you'll be softer this time, less demanding, less emotional. Because in their heart, they want connection. They just want it without the risk. They want love without the vulnerability. They want closeness without the fear of getting hurt. So they hope you come back, but they want you to come back in a way that doesn't challenge their walls. They want you to make it easy for them to stay guarded while still feeling wanted. That's the dance they're always doing. Pulling you in just close enough to feel desired, but pushing you back before it gets too real. So when you go no contact, it throws them into a spin. It makes them hope you'll return, but also hope that when you do, you'll play by their rules this time. They dream about you showing up and say everything they want to hear, but without asking them to open up in return. They want you to reassure them that you'll be there no matter how distant they get, no matter how many times they push you away. They want unconditional loyalty without having to risk emotional exposure. So their hope isn't just that you come back, it's that you come back and make it safe for them to stay in their comfort zone. They want the benefits of love without paying the price of intimacy. Now, they might not admit this. No, they'll never say it out loud. They might even convince themselves they don't care if you return. But if you could crack open their heart and see what's really going on, you'd see that silent wish burning in there. That hope that you'll reappear, that you'll chase them one more time, that you'll prove they're still wanted even when They refuse to give you the closeness you crave because that's how they protect themselves. By making love a game they can win without having to get vulnerable. So while they're sitting in that silence, pretending they're fine, they're actually hoping you'll break first. They want you to bridge the gap, but they want to stay on their side of the wall. They want connection, but only if it doesn't force them to face their fears. That's the twisted hope they carry, that love will come to them, but in a way that lets them stay distant, protected, and in control. That's what they're waiting for when you go no contact, even if their pride won't let them show it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get real about something today. You see, when you go no contact with an avoidant person, there's a whole hidden battle going on inside them that they'll never admit. On the outside, they're going to act like they're cool, like your silence doesn't bother them one bit. They might even convince themselves they're better off now. But deep down, in that quiet place they never show the world, they're hoping you'll come back. Oh yes, they're waiting, but they don't just want you back. They want you back on their terms. They want the situation to unfold in a way where they stay in control, where they never have to lower those walls they've built around their heart. Because for them, love has always been dangerous territory. Getting too close feels like giving up their safety. So when you walked away, when you went silent, it stung, but at the same time, it gave them a little relief. It gave them space to breathe without the pressure of intimacy. And now they're hoping you'll return, but only if it doesn't cost them their sense of control. They want you to come back softer, gentler, less demanding. They want you to show up and say, it's okay, I'll take whatever you're willing to give, even if it's just scraps. That way, they get to feel wanted without having to face their biggest fear, vulnerability. They dream about you reaching out first, about you being the one to fix things. In their mind, they run through little scenarios where you call, where you text, where you show up and say you miss them. But in all those daydreams, they never picture themselves having to do the reaching. That's because for them, reaching out feels like losing. It feels like admitting they care. And that's dangerous territory. So they sit there quietly hoping the door will open, but unwilling to walk through it first. They want the comfort of connection without the risk of rejection. Now, let me tell you, they might act cold, they might seem distant, but that's all part of the game they play with themselves. That distance is their shield, and they hope that when you come back, you'll let them keep that shield up. They want you to tiptoe around their walls, never asking them to tear them down, because in their world, love should feel safe, and safe means no vulnerability, no exposure, no real emotional nakedness. So while they secretly hope for your return, they're also terrified that you might come back and expect them to open up, to be different, to change. They want the return, but without the price. They want to feel chosen without having to choose. They want to feel secure without having to risk. It's a tricky little dance they're doing, reaching out with one hand while pushing away with the other. And so when you stay silent, they keep waiting, telling themselves, if they come back, then I win. Then it's not about love in the deep, connected sense. It's about soothing their old wounds, proving to themselves that they're still in control. They're hoping every day you're gone that you'll give in first, that you'll break the silence, that you'll show up ready to accept them just as they are, guarded and distant without asking for more. Because asking for more feels like danger. And so, even though they long for your presence, they want it only if it doesn't threaten their defenses. That's what's really going on beneath that cool exterior. A deep hidden wish that you'll come back, but only in a way that lets them stay behind their walls, safe and untouchable. Ladies and gentlemen, let me lay it out plain today. When you go no contact with an avoidant person, deep inside they start leaning on one powerful hope. They hope that time will do their work for them. They hope that as the days and weeks roll by, you'll start to forget about the pain they caused. They hope that all those nights you cried, all those moments you felt rejected, all those times you were left wondering if you mattered, they hope those memories will fade like a bad dream, and in their place they want the good times to shine brighter in your mind. They're counting on nostalgia to do the heavy lifting, to soften your heart, to make you miss them more than you remember the hurt. Because you see, avoidants know, even if they never say it, that they've pushed you away, that they've made you feel small, unseen, and unloved. They know there's damage done. But they're banking on the idea that time heals wounds, or at least dulls them. They hope that after enough time passes, you'll look back and only remember the laughter, the smiles, the early days when everything felt new and sweet. They want those golden memories to flood your heart and make you second-guess your decision to walk away. They hope you'll start saying to yourself, maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I should give them another chance. And why do they hope this? Because they know they're not ready to face the hard conversations. They're not ready to own up to the pain they've caused. They're not built to sit in discomfort and talk about feelings. So they lean on time like it's their best friend. They hope that if they just wait long enough, the storm will pass and you'll come back calmer, softer, more forgiving. They're counting on you forgetting how lonely you felt when they shut you out, and instead remembering how warm it felt when they let you in. Even if it was only for a little while. In their mind, time isn't just healing you, it's cleaning the slate for them. It's erasing the sharp edges of your anger and leaving behind the sweet blur of good memories. They hope that time will do what they can't do themselves, repair the damage without them having to get vulnerable, without them having to say, I'm sorry, I hurt you. Because that kind of accountability, that kind of emotional honesty, that feels too dangerous for them. So they sit back, silent, distant, and let the clock tick, trusting that your heart will soften before theirs ever has to open. And they also hope that time will make you question your own feelings, that maybe after enough days apart, you'll start blaming yourself. You'll start thinking you were too sensitive, too needy, too emotional. They hope that distance makes you forget that it was their avoidance, their fear of closeness, that created the pain in the first place. They want you to come back ready to focus on the good, ready to minimize the bad, ready to try again, but this time without asking them to change. So every silent day that passes, they're quietly hoping that time is working in their favor, that your memories are softening, that your pain is fading, that your longing is growing stronger than your anger. They want the scales in your heart to tip toward missing them instead of resenting them. Because if you come back remembering only the good, it means they don't have to face the ugly parts. They don't have to confront the ways they hurt you. They can slide right back into your life without ever having to lower their guard. That's what they're really hoping for when they watch the calendar days slip by in silence. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to the avoidant mindset, there's one thing you have to understand. They don't want to lose the relationship. They really don't. But what they're looking for is a way to make the relationship feel less overwhelming, less consuming, less chaotic. And this is where the emotional distance comes in. When you go no contact, it feeds into their deepest hope that if they just keep enough distance, the relationship will become more manageable, less demanding, and most importantly, safe. It's not that they don't care about you, it's that they can't handle the emotional intensity that comes with closeness. So instead of facing that discomfort, they pull away. They try to create space to put emotional distance between you and them, because in their mind, that's the key to keeping things from getting too heavy. At first, it might feel like relief to them. It feels like they've regained some control. They get to breathe again. They get to feel like they're not being suffocated by the demands of the relationship. But here's the kicker. They hope that over time, this emotional distance will give them a chance to get their bearings, to calm down, and to figure out how to be in a relationship without it feeling so intense. They hope that distance will allow them to reconnect with you on their own terms, but in a way that feels like it's under their control. They don't want to feel like they're constantly navigating the storm of someone else's emotions, so they pull away to avoid it. They're hoping that over time, the relationship will settle into a more predictable, manageable rhythm, one where they don't have to face the things that make them uncomfortable, like vulnerability or intimacy. What they're really hoping for